Hi, I'm Jacob Shapiro, the US and Canada Sales and Marketing Manager for Nobrow and Flying Eye Books. We're a small visual publisher focusing on everything from children's picture books to adult graphic novels and everything in between. I'm based here in New York City, and I'm really excited to share with you a few of our favorite books we're putting out this year. The first book I'd like to talk about today is An Illustrated History of Ghosts by Adam Alsuch Boardman. This is an infographic or coffee table style book, not just about the history of ghosts, but really their cultural relevance in societies around the globe. This is an informational book, but the text is also pretty humorous all the way through. It goes from ancient history all the way through modern day ghost sightings, conspiracy theories, ghost hunter TV shows, even internet creepypastas. It really touches on all aspects of ghosts and the paranormal, as you can see here, ghost ships, and even pop culture ghosts. This book is not just a Halloween book. Ghosts are something that have year-round appeal to people, especially in an internet age where I think people who are into these things have an easier way of connecting with each other. This is the third book in this series by UK-based author, illustrator, designer Adam Alsuch Boardman, after an illustrated history of filmmaking and UFOs, which really solidified the idea that people are really interested in the paranormal, and we're excited to put out a book like this. It comes out in September, and we're really excited for it. The next book I'd like to talk about is Nowhere Girl by French cartoonist Magali Lahuche. We're publishing this on our Nobrow adult line, but this book has tons of YA appeal. It's about a young girl in Paris who doesn't fit in at home, doesn't fit in at school, and really copes with depression in the way that many kids do. And really, her outlet is when she discovers the Beatles, who appear to her as these psychedelic little men. The book uses a very limited color palette, except for when the Beatles show up, and suddenly the book gets much more psychedelic and trippy. This is a graphic novel that I'd recommend to any Beatles fan, but it's not really about the Beatles. It's really about coping with childhood depression more than anything else, which I think has tons of universal appeal. It's got a very French art style and sense of humor, but also reminds me a little bit of American cartoonists like Roz Chast in its way of approaching real life topics. The book is semi-autobiographical. The main character shares the name of the author, but there's tons of magical realist elements. This is her first book published in English, and we are really excited to bring this French graphic novel to an English-speaking audience. This is Nowhere Girl, out in September. Next is The Adventures of Team Palm, The Last Dodo, by New York-based Filipino cartoonist Isabel Rojas. This is a middle grade graphic novel from our children's imprint, Flying Eye Books, about a diverse group of misfit kids from New York City getting into all sorts of hijinks. In a landscape where a lot of kids' books are about children growing up in the suburbs, we really like providing a story about kids flourishing in an urban environment. This is the sequel to Team Palm's Squid Happens, which is about Team Palm forming as a synchronized swim team in their local boys and girls club. Agnes, Roberta, and Ruby, our main characters, now in book 2, The Last Dodo, head off to the American Museum of Natural History to rescue the remnants of the last dodo bird, because our nefarious villain, Steve, is on a mission to use those remnants to transform all humans into dodo birds. This caper takes us all over the city and on chase scenes and action sequences through subways, sewers, Times Square, all the New York places you want to see. I think it's a really fun book that's really about New York. Isabel fills this book with all sorts of advanced language that really respects the kids and is like pretty intelligent for a book that's very slapstick and fun. I'm really excited for this follow-up. And it's another book by a US creator. Next is Thieves, a graphic novel by French cartoonist Lucy Briand, one of the graphic novels we are most excited about to be putting out this year. Lucy Briand is French, but you can tell from the art that she's deeply shoujo manga inspired in all of this. This comic actually reminds me a lot of Scott Pilgrim in the sense of being a Western comic that's very inspired by manga, but also a comic that's very much about like teenagers and what teenagers get up to. This is a queer high school romance caper comic about a girl who discovers that she's a narcoleptic kleptomaniac and also discovers love at the same time. The art style really sells itself. It has a limited color palette that, as the book goes on, kind of evolves and changes in different settings. The comic is super playful, really kind of captures what it's like to be a teenager. We've got some heavy hitter blurbs on this one. Tilly Walden and Molly Knox Ostertag. We're really trying to position this book in that same crew. Lucy Brion has a pretty big Instagram following. People are really excited for this book. This is her first comic published in English, though, and we are incredibly proud to be the ones who get to put this out in October. Next is one of our nonfiction children's picture books, Wild Animals of the World by German illustrator Dieter Braun. This is an expanded compendium of the very well-reviewed Wild Animals of the North and South that we put out a few years back, but they're out of print. This collects both books and expands them with brand new illustrations as well. This is an oversized trim picture book with over 200 pages, full color, of just really luscious kind of geometric illustrations of animals from all over the world, with their scientific names and trivia about many of the animals. But really, the draw is just the artwork. And this really exemplifies the kind of books that Nobrow and Flying Eye like to do. You know, everyone's put out a book about animals. It's an evergreen topic, but for us, it's really taking it to the next level and making it about animals, but also just the art. And it's just a really kind of gorgeous book to hold in your hands. This is a children's book, but it's going to have plenty of crossover appeal to adults just because the illustrations are so beautiful. We're happy to finally have this book back, this book back in print after the last two went out of print years ago. So we're really excited for this one in November. Last up, we've got our heavy hitter. It's Hilda, the Trollburg Stories by Luke Pearson. This is a bind up of the two middle books in the Hilda series. If you're unfamiliar with Hilda, it's the thing we're most famous for. It is a mid-grade graphic novel series about this girl, Hilda, who lives in the woods with her mom and her pet deer fox, Twig. They get on all sorts of adventures, a lot of which are inspired by Norse mythology. This compendium collects Hilda and the Bird Parade and Hilda and the Black Hound. So the two stories together here are really about Hilda and her mom moving from the wilderness into the city of Trollburg. They're really about a kid having trouble adjusting to living in a new place, especially since she loves the forest so much, but now she's forced to live in the city where she feels like it has no personality, no soul, no connection to the nature she loves. But she's able to find friends along the way. This volume has a few extra behind the scenes sketches to make it worth your while to purchase if you haven't purchased it already. But Luke Pearson is hard at work on the third series of the third season of the Netflix show, which should be out late next year. We're excited to finally put out the second compendium, Hilda the Trollburg Stories. And that's it. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Jacob Shapiro. This has been Nobrow and Flying Eye Books. Just to note, our books are all printed on FSC certified paper. We've put a huge environmental focus, not just on the topics of the books, but how they're printed too. Thank you for joining us today.